So I am here with Tyler Schuster, and so just right out of the gate, you speak a lot about stewardship. How do you define that in the context of health and wellness, which is the space you're in, and how do you personally live it out day to day?
So the idea of of stewardship, first like with my foundation being, through Christ and my relationship with God, I think that's a common theme just throughout the Bible, throughout the whole text, and just the idea that we're meant to give it back, right? And we're called to be the best versions of ourselves, the most capable versions of ourselves in all capacity, so that we can go out and shine that light.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I know you talk about, just the stewardship part. What does that look like for you in like business? So health and wellness, it's all through the lens of Christianity and your beliefs.
Mhm.
What does this look like in the situation like in business? How do you grow something? How do you steward that well on the business side of things to actually push um forward an excellent type of business or something that whether it's product or whether it's just anything in that realm, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis that you're like, I'm doing this because of just I want this to be better?
Yeah, well, I think first you kinda have to try to eliminate the noise and really kind of,
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
set your aim, and it's like, what is it? What's the direction I'm trying to go? And that's a loaded question, and I think that that time spent reflecting and in prayer and in the Word is what will give you that direction and give you those answers, and, I think of, the parable of the talents, and, you know, God gives us certain abilities and talents and resources and backgrounds that we come from. And through that, um, just trying to, you know, hone that in a way where you can it starts with yourself, and then you have like your community and your little group of friends and motivating and inspiring each other, and then it could be in a family. It starts in the family with parents and a kid, but for as a business sense, I've learned a lot about business and leadership throughout the past few years, and you know that you have the meta goal of the company and the direction you're trying to go, but also it's like I want people in this company to be better. Uh, the young men who are under my leadership, I want them to be better people, humans.
Yeah.
Even outside of our company and being an employee and working for us, I want them to be, better people to go out into the earth and to make an impact. And whether they're with me for a few more months or whether they're in it for the long haul and they're with me for life, if I can inspire people and help, develop people, and that's been a passion of mine recently.
Wow. Yeah, that's really good. How do you ensure that? Like how do you invest into others in order to grow your business? How do you I guess like in a business sense, there's a very much like if you don't invest, like an example is like we have a friend up in Banff, Alberta, and he owns a hotel up there. And one of the things he was saying to us is like you really need to invest in your people, and your best returns from that are investing into them. How are you
Mm.
doing that on like a day to day basis, or just like a month to month basis? On like I'm going to invest in you, or like what does that look like?
Well, here recently, I've been really wanting to have kind of deeper talks with my guys, and it's like, what are your interests? I think the hardest thing to do, it kind of starts with yourself, self reflection, and that's the hardest part. What is it that what direction do I want to go? Where do I feel called? So we've been kind of going through some questions where it's been a good exercise for our guys to kind of do that on their own. And my dream or my goal here is to with this company is we're kind of right in the process of trying to set that clear aim and try to what do we want our culture to look like, and so
Mm.
I'm in the
Yeah,
process. This chapter of my life right now is more so trying to really define that myself. And then, talking to my guys in a way where it's like, hey, I want you to also go back in your own corners and work on this on your own. And then let's come together. And then, okay, what inspires you? Like, what kind of culture do you want to represent? Like, what are your passions? What are your interests? What do you want to represent? What do you what do you stand against? What's your who are your
yeah,
enemies? What's your mission statement? And kind of working on that. Um, and I there was a as far as investing in our guys, it's in a practical sense, it's that right now. And me and one of my partners are going down to an event called the Vault in September. It's
mm,
part of
yeah.
Valuetainment. Patrick Bet David is
Oh,
putting that
wow,
on
yeah,
down in Orlando. So that's going to be a great experience. Just being in that environment, hearing people who are just high level operators process
yeah.
issues and learn and just be a sponge. So, attending things like that, consulting, joining masterminds. This is kind of all a new thing for me where I'm at. And just good books. Let's read books together. Like, what do you think? Um that's kind of in a practical sense what we're doing right now.
Wow, that's really good. Have you read, Isidore Sharp's Four Seasons book?
I have not.
Dude, you need to read that because that book is, like, all about hospitality, all about how to invest into your employees. He took Four Seasons from, a motel in Toronto to a $10 billion company. It's incredible. But, yeah, when I listen to that, it's like, if I think investing in people is so underrated that it's almost like people don't think about that. But I think just having that idea, and I like the self-reflection idea, because self-reflecting, if you don't do that, then how do you know what to give your employees if you're not looking inward or at yourself first? It's like it's
Mm.
practice what you preach, right? And
Yeah.
yeah.
And in a lot of ways, if you've got um there comes a point in a business where you reach a point where I feel like you can't wing it as much, and hard work will get you really far. But there comes a point where there really needs to be intention and strategy. And we're kind of at that place right now. And you can have guys that will run through a brick wall for you, right? But if they don't know which walls to run through, right, and they don't, if
Mm.
you ask them, why are you here? What are our goals? What's our short term? So just trying to dial in a true getting more strategic and more strategized and thinking multiple moves ahead, like we're playing chess.
Yeah, I've actually been playing chess more and more. And so every time I see like a business move, I'm like, oh, that's a really good
Mhm.
chess move, because
Mm,
are you putting that person in checkmate? Are you putting that person in check? What are you like? What are you trying to accomplish through that?
mm,
It reminds
yeah,
me of Patrick Bet David's book. What was it? Five moves ahead, or
mhm,
strategic moves ahead, or
yeah.
something like that, where it like the cover is chess pieces. So it's like incredible. I know you talk about that book a lot.
Ye Yeah, and I think in that book, I just thought of a quote, talking about investing into your guys and as a business. There was a
Yeah.
situation where two gentlemen were having a conversation, and one of them was like paying all this money to send his guys to go to these conferences, to take this course, to be reinvesting into his people, to hone their skills and make them, better employees. And the other guy was like, "Hey, how can you afford to do that? And what if you invest all of this and they end up leaving your company?" And then he
Mm.
goes, "Well, what if you don't invest into them and they stay?"
Mm.
So
Oh, yeah. That's a
you're
good
just
point.
getting, you have guys that, you are not actively seeking to grow them and to make them the best that they can be under this umbrella of this business.
Yeah. Wow. That's really good. It does make sense, because if you don't invest into people, why should they care? Really, it's
Mm.
like, yeah, why? How do you find people that care about your business? Is it that they align with your values? Like, how do you hire people, and how does that process, like, do you have a vetting process of when you're hiring people, or advice that you've been given that it's like, we do it this way and we want to make sure they have these traits?
Yeah. So It's all kind of happened organically, from the start.
Yeah,
I'm blessed. I come from a big family, on the Outer Banks, North Carolina, and I grew up playing sports. All my younger siblings played sports, so in the wedding and event industry, it's a lot of physical labor that goes into it, hauling tables and chairs, and you
yeah,
need guys that can communicate. That if things go wrong, they can keep their cool and they know how to problem solve in real time. So I've been kind of blessed with my upbringing, to just have a network of good people around me. So just kind of plugging guys in, and we've got a core that I feel very strongly in right now, and capable young men who have been through some ups and downs, and I've they're battle tested in that way.
yeah.
And
That's
one piece of
yeah.
advice, sorry, so someone did mention this to me where they say hire slow, fire fast. Um,
Yeah,
and
that's really
and
good. Yeah, hire slow, fire fast. Wow,
because
that's
if
really
there
good.
sometimes it's sometimes it can literally just and this is where it gets tough with business. It's just not working out for whatever reason, the personality and the relationship, and you can kind of spend a lot of time trying to mend that,
Mm,
and when
yeah.
it's the best to move on, and then the reverse of it, it's like, okay, let's take this hiring process a little bit more serious. What are their experiences? Let's ask them some questions, and what are their goals? And that's another area that I'm looking to grow into, and that only becomes increasingly important as you grow and as you scale.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on like A players, B players, C players? Like, if you had a C player in your company, would you get rid of them fast? Would you fire fast? Uh, it, I don't know if you know the concepts A player, B player, C player, but A player is like, this is a rock star. We can't do our business without them. B player is like,
Mhm.
they could be trained into an A player, but they're not to that level yet. And then a C player is just like toxic, doesn't, they're lazy, doesn't really do a lot of work. And we could
Mhm.
easily fire them. We would be relieved. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but like, do you notice that in your company and you're like, we want to stay away from those people? We're actively preventing that, or just like what does that look like in your guys' company?
Yeah, so that's a process that I'm still kind of growing into in this next chapter.
Yeah.
Like the quote that I talked about, fire fast, that kind of speaks to the C player, and it gets tough because I have this part of me, as a leader, and I don't know if this is coming from a right place or if it's coming more from a place of ego or not, that or just being naive to the fact where I feel like I genuinely like it makes me happy to try to get the most out of people. I enjoy that. And I
Mm,
like to see potential in people when they can't even see it in themselves. So a part of me as a leader is like, if someone isn't performing, it's like, okay, well, what could I have done better? Is it look extreme ownership, looking at yourself first? It's like, was there a clear system in place? Were there clear expectations and
mm,
roles, and
wow.
where was the mistake? Was it negligence? Is it just ignorance, or is it because there wasn't clear instruction? And
Mm,
like I said, the higher you scale, the more clear you have to be with your intention and your systems, and that's kind of we're right in the middle of really trying to hone that in.
wow. That's really good. And the more that I think about that, it's like, if I know that, in my position, in what I do, it's like I'm not necessarily top of the ranks,
Mhm,
in terms of like executive level, but it's like when I'm working, is the reason why the people around me might not be doing as well, is it because of my ownership or my leadership? Did I not do this in the right time or give clear instructions? Did I not? I think that's a really good reframing where it's like just kind of keeping it in mind, where it's like knowing when you're the one to kind of present that fault. It's not their fault. It's not that they did this or that or that. It's actually looking inward and saying, no, that was my fault. I own up to that. I think that's a really good distinction that I think anyone can benefit from. And
mhm.
that's something that, I mean, that's just a great insight that I personally would take. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good. What's your background like? What was the pivotal moment that really pulled you into your space, your health and wellness, or what you're doing right now? And was there kind of like a personal story or path that really shaped your experience?
Yeah. So, I grew up the oldest of 7 kids, 5
Mm,
boys and 2 girls.
yeah.
Dad played football and wrestled in college. My mom was an athlete, and so I've been around sports my whole life, and the physical side, wrestled. I ended up playing football in college. I was in the Marine Corps for 6 years, and um, so and right now I'm working with a company called I Do OBX Weddings and Events. I never thought I would be in this industry. It's just kind of part of God, just opening doors and things kind of falling into place. And this brand right here, Sweat a Little Bit, has kind of
Yeah.
been on my sweatshirt here. It's just kind of been like a passion project. Kind of been like on the side. I'm at my buddy Jordan's house in Charlotte right now. We're working on some projects and some ideas
Yeah.
and thinking of some things together to take some action. And this is where I've, like I said, tapping back into the source, like, what is God calling me to do? And it's kind of, it's a moment to where, all of my experiences and weddings and events, right? And the things that I've learned in business and leadership and how to run a crew and the logistics and things that come with that. And we've recently acquired a beautiful property on the water called the Diamond on the Sound. And we're kind
Mm,
of starting to
yeah.
pivot and transition into doing, we've done a couple retreats, and I'm looking to get into wellness real estate, wellness tourism, and looking to
Wow.
host wellness centered events. And it's a growing industry. You're seeing things like there's an event called the Running Man, I believe it's called, where it's basically like there's a race and it's like a music festival and health and wellness all combined. It's like a growing
Wow.
thing.
That's really
And
cool.
yeah, and I'm sure, you being, connected with Life Network, you've seen a bunch of cool events and how it's a growing demand where people are wanting community and
Yes.
they're wanting to start to take care of themselves. But for me, the way it kind of started was just, it was just organically through sports, very active, jujitsu. I love surfing. I love nature. And I always had the physical side on check. And then there was a moment not too far after COVID where um I was in some storms. I was in some deep waters, and it was first
Yeah.
time we're like dealing with anxiety um and mental health in a way that I'd never experienced. And that kind of put a lot of things in perspective for me, and that was a really tough time, but in
Yeah.
hindsight, gave me perspective and gave me direction, that kind of led me to where I'm at now. And I'm happy to get deeper into that specific situation if you would like.
Yeah, that would be great. I would say something to add to that is, I was just talking with Jonathan Drecke, who I had on the podcast, and he said that he had lost his dad, I think
Mm,
after COVID or before that. Um, I want to say it was like 3 years ago now. But he lost his dad, and something that he was telling me is that it was, of course, it's sad, and it's something that really affected him, but it's something that was almost necessary to bring him back to God.
mm,
And I would almost say that, like, and this is just my observation, it's almost as if God was doing that for you as well, where it's like, it's almost like a wake up call, where it's like, you know, God uses these extreme examples or extreme things to kind of wake you back up. And so, yeah, I'd like to hear more about that if you're willing to go into that.
yeah. And I remember listening to that. I listened to that pod. That was amazing testimony that he had. And it's that whole
Yeah.
concept of he turns graves into gardens.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
praise and worship song. I think that's based off of a scripture. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think it is. Yeah.
Um, But yeah, for me, brother, right around that moment, it was okay. College football's done.
Mm,
Marine Corps, I'm done. So that's like moved on from that. That was such a big part of my identity, and I was in my mid 20s, and it was right around the time where in my company, I accepted my new role and a lot new responsibility and received part ownership of the company. and I was managing and scheduling and delegating and had all these responsibilities, working with some of my best friends and my brother, my
Yeah.
family members, and try to manage that. And then, to be honest with you, at the same time, I just wasn't living right. I was partying, I was drinking and smoking and not eating well, and chasing girls around and staying up late and burning the candle at both ends. So for me, I was working really hard, and then I was going out and not taking care of myself. And I feel like, and I just reflect on the time, like I said, I was drinking energy drinks first thing in the morning, not sleeping
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
Um, and my nervous system was just shot. I feel like I was just redlined, just on edge. And so, from the physical side of it, there's that, right? I was not taking care of myself. I mentioned some of the substances and the way I was living, and all the responsibility. And then also, I really think that whole football, Marine Corps, and this next like chapter, as a young man kind of stepping into that next chapter in life, it was kind of like, oh, okay, what now? And mind you, I was not actively seeking my relationship with God. I did not have that clarity. I still had a work ethic. I was a grinder. I'd work hard, but um, so I'll tell you a little bit more about what actually happened. Is I was one night just being out drinking, being with the homies or whatever. And then we went out to get some breakfast the next morning. And I was at a restaurant, and all of a sudden it seemed like the walls were closing in on me. And,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and I chalked it up to I have a shellfish allergy. And I was like, oh, there's cross contamination in the kitchen. Like when something's in my food, I'm having
Yeah.
anaphylactic shock. And all of a sudden, I'm like, what's going on here? This is really weird. And, it was I didn't know it was a panic attack, and I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that was a thing that could happen. I had no clue. Like I mentioned, Marine Corps, college football background. I'm used to stress. I'm used to yelling and screaming. I'm even used to operating on low sleep and having to perform and execute high pressure situations. And um, so that was happening, and then there was and then it happened a few other times after that, and that it is such a bizarre, unknown, scary feeling to where you start your mind starts playing tricks on itself, and, you repeat in your head, "What's wrong with me? What is wrong with me? What is wrong with me?" And that just gets in your head, and then, yeah, brother, it was a rough couple weeks, like, I didn't really leave the house much. I checked into a hospital, um
Wow.
and, I remember being there in the parking lot with my buddy Alec, and crying like a baby. Not like just genuinely just confused, just out of it, man, like a shell of myself. And, I remember him and his wife, my parents were there, and they were praying with me. And I remember him specifically praying about he said something about, "We're gonna turn this around, we're gonna flip this on the enemy one day, and we're gonna pray for this moment, and it's gonna have purpose." And then, also around that time, he had written a praise and worship song around the passage of Jesus, when he was in the boat, and there was a storm, and he says, "Peace be still," right? So
Mm.
that was a I was singing that melody in like my darkest time. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with, hands down.
Wow.
And I remember just laying there. It was around COVID time, like I said. So I'm in this like janitor closet of a hospital room, and they're asking me all these crazy questions, and it's just like making it completely worse. And it got all I could do, brother, was say the name of Jesus over and over and over
Mm.
again. Jesus,
Yeah.
Jesus, Jesus, peace be still. Singing that melody that my friend had wrote that song in my head. It brought me to my knees, and in hindsight, because like I said, body, mind, and spirit, it's all connected. And I mentioned the physical stuff, the poor sleep, the drinking, the smoking, the not acting, not living right, not eating right, the caffeine, the nicotine, all of it, right? From the physical standpoint, and again, I think they're all intertwined. I almost viewed it as God looking at me and going like, "Oh, you wanna act. This is the way you wanna choose to live. and it's almost like he took his shields and turned them down a little bit, and, because it did a part of it felt like a spiritual attack,
Hmm.
and, sometimes you gotta touch the stove to know that it's hot, and that was that moment for me, and it was rough, but I've this is my second time sharing this on a podcast. The first time I've received just random friends just hitting me up out of the blue saying that they went through something similar and it was encouraging. So my for them to hear that message and so going back and hear like my friend praying that for me in that moment is just such a blessing and how it's come full circle and then one thing I wanna say too, it's if you are someone who has, like, had a similar experience, I just remember feeling so ashamed and, like, embarrassed about it, and it's just it was a weird thing to talk about, but I can't tell you how many people I talked to with very similar experiences, and it's particularly with, like, young men, like, in their, like, mid-20s. There's something about
Hmm.
that
That's
that
weird.
and I don't know, I know they say, like, with men, like, our brains are fully developed around 25, and I think it's like
Yeah.
a coming of age kinda time of your life too, like a next chapter
Yeah.
but it is for anyone out there, it's more common than you think, and you're not alone in it, and all I would say is just to I would lean into God as much as possible. Like I said, all I had left in that moment was just to say the name of Jesus over and over again.
Yeah, what do you think that was? Like not just your experience, but like you said that young men are having this. What do you think that is with like this whole idea of like Lewis Howes is a really good example. He had this thing where he was playing college football, he got injured, and then all of a sudden he couldn't play football again. Went through a recovery period, but kind of lost his identity and then just kind of came back out of not nowhere, but he came back and he was starting to do all these other things. And then he finally, now we know him as this like coach and, talking with like Mr. Beast and has podcasts and like all these things. But like, why do you think that is that young men are struggling with this kind of not identity crisis, but like, why do you think this is so prevalent in our culture?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to get into on that question.
Yeah.
I would say for me, brother, when you look at things through a biblical lens, everything makes the most sense to me. And if you believe in the Bible, you believe, it talks about a spiritual warfare all throughout. And I just think that manifests itself in so many ways. And then, and one example is a lot of people, um, especially as of late, are starting to look into their food. What are all these ingredients in my food? And where was this sourced from? And what did they spray on that? And that's just one example to where I feel like a lot of people aren't receiving the nutrients that they should be receiving to be and have the materials in their body to be able to all these systems to function and our nervous system to function in the way it's supposed to. So I think that's
Yeah.
a part of it. I think um, and then I would say also people are just kind of like lacking a sense of purpose and a direction. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I definitely see that. I think we have this kind of weird thing where in school, we don't have this set like they have set boundaries where it's like you go to school, they tell you should go to college or you should do something with sports or you should be doing all these different things. And it kind of takes that thought or that like it enables this idea of like I don't need to think about what I'm going to do until my senior year or junior year of high school. You get into that situation where you go to college and then you realize I actually don't really want to do this, or it could be the opposite where I really want to do this, but it's not necessarily what everyone needs. I don't believe the school system's a one size fits all.
Mhm,
Um, where it's like I like of course go to school, but with this idea of you need to find your purpose in college or you need to find
mhm,
your purpose going to school like immediately. I don't think it works the same way for everyone. And so
Mhm.
I think this identity crisis could be very prevalent because you're in these certain amount of groups, you're doing all these things, and to really step away from that can cause an identity crisis where you're like, who am I without this? And
Mhm.
so I think it could be a prevalent thing because, like you said, you were playing football, you were doing all these things, Marine Corps, but you finally get out of it and you're like, all right, I'm out of this group. I'm out of this group. I actually need to like start doing things in my life that are, business, whatever it is, just like find a career doing something awesome. And I think what's really interesting is that it's not most people don't think like that, and it's just kind of like, let's ride the wave until the wave stops. They don't know what to do, and so I think what you're describing is pretty accurate. Where it's like, I do think there is a lot of, just things going on where there's not this defining like I need to decide this right now. It's very kind of like a lazy mentality. Um, not that people don't think about it. It's just that it's very hard for people to take the time and say, what is my mission? What do I want to do in life? And sometimes it doesn't get revealed until later. Like sometimes it doesn't get revealed until you're in your 20s or 30s. But finding your purpose is something that I would encourage a lot of people to do. And so that's just something what it sounds like, just from your end or just from your story. That's just something that I think about, and that's what comes to my mind. And yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on that and if you agree or not, but yeah, that's kind of like what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that a lot of that makes a lot of sense, and I think for some people, they might hear that, "Well, what is my purpose?" And that's such a loaded, tough question, right? And I
Yeah,
think it's
it is.
especially for any, young listeners out there, like, it is okay, especially at
Yeah.
your age, like, that if you don't know your clear steps of what the heck you're gonna do with the rest of your life, right? Um, but I think going back to kinda just the way our environment is these days where there's just so many distractions, like I mentioned the food part of it, and maybe we're not getting the nutrients we need. um, Social media, what that
Yeah.
is, the clickbait and the constant doom scrolling, and how that's just distracting us and numbing us. I think in a lot of ways people are just kind of numb. um, And that's why, to take a full circle, we talked about, being stewards and being leaders in business, and then even just like I'm not a parent yet, but I just think like having it's such an important role for good fathers and good mothers
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
set that example. Um and because it part of that, because it changes, right? God, all of this distraction that I alluded to, if you're not able to receive that, there's a difference between signal and noise, right? So I just
Yeah.
described all the noise, and we're trying to find that signal. So that's why, to tie it back to health and wellness, all of the things that you recommend and that you stand for, and physical activity and meditation and prayer and breath work and community and all these grounding experiences. I think that is a way, like, people get locked in on the physical part of it, and getting jacked or being able to run, a certain distance, or whatever the goal, the metric is physically. But a lot of that, it just allows you to just clear that clutter in your brain to be able to receive that signal.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really good. How do you, as a business owner or just someone, like, how do you intentionally go out into community and make sure you're doing things, if even if it doesn't like necessarily pertain to your business, or like I know you have the wedding business, so it's pretty easy to
Mhm.
like, you know, be with all these people. But how do you intentionally go out and try to connect with people that you might not have connected with if you're just staying put in your business, or
Mm.
um just like constantly going out, and like what does that look like?
Yeah. Um, what was the term that you said on the phone the one time? Something curiosity.
Oh, insatiable or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think just uh, being curious about things, and like I said, everything that kind of transpired to get me to where I'm at now, I've been in a place where I am able to receive that signal, right? And I think I call them whispers from the Lord, and that's kind of
Mm,
when like God will open up a door for you, and that could be a connection or whatever it is. And I think starting there, kind of receiving that signal and spending more time in prayer and in the Word, and God has just opened up some doors. I mean, even me and you connecting,
yeah, I know.
or as organic as that happened. So I can kind of just use that as an example, just seeing what Life Network was doing, and that was such an amazing platform that kind of represented all of the things that I aspire to do,
Yeah,
and on the largest scale, and I saw your a post, and I was like, "Oh, this looks cool. This is interesting. He's like really getting into these books, and let me just reach out to him and say hi." That like the power
yeah,
of networking is huge for any of you
it
like
is, yeah.
young entrepreneurs, um, and then so just being curious
Mm,
and reaching out and networking and putting yourself out there. I know we talked a little bit about the uh the story about Rosie, the woman who we
yes,
supported, for her race,
yeah,
and that was something. So again, we have the Diamond on the Sound, which is a beautiful waterfront property on the Outer Banks in Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina, and
yeah,
there's an event called the Blackbeard's Revenge, and it's an ultra marathon race, and I had done the relay race with my friends the year previously, and I ran like 33 miles as a part of that relay team. Is the most ever. I'm not even like a runner like that. That was a big challenge, and so the following year, I'm like, oh, we can create this amazing immersive experience and host some of the runners, maybe a relay team, maybe a group of, you know, individual runners with their families, and we'll have this immersive experience, get them a private chef and a massage on site and all the things, just trying to my first attempt at kind of going in that direction. And then through that, God just opened a door for me, and I was just doing research on trying to learn more about that community because I'm not immersed in ultra marathon running by any means. And I found this lady named Rosie. And long story short, she tragically lost her son to
mm, yeah.
suicide. He was in the Marine Corps, and I think he had an injury and was prescribed opioids, and that kind of
Oh
set
my
off
goodness. Yeah,
like some mental health issues from there. He actually got discharged from the Marine Corps, and he all he ever wanted to be was a Marine. So going back to the identity thing, that was a young man who was struggling with that. So in his honor, and Rosie, she did an amazing podcast with my buddy Jalen that weekend, and she shares her story so beautifully. But she set off to run a mission to run 100 individual 100-mile relay, or not relays, 100-mile ultra marathons. And
wow,
so
that's
she was on.
incredible.
Yeah, she's a beast. She's, mother. She has 8 kids, and she's just a dog. Like she's one of the most
Yeah,
incredible women. But that was something that just happened organically, me putting myself out there, continuing to pursue what I felt like God was putting in my heart and what I was passionate about. And God just put that right in front of me. And I think a big part of the way that I feel like I can steward my message is to help. I feel like I'm kind of in the way that you're doing with this podcast, is just kind of giving people a platform to tell their story in a way that could
mhm,
encourage people. And
yeah,
we're working on a documentary for that. That's going to be really, really cool.
wow,
um,
yeah,
so that was really exciting. But as far as the way how I'm like practically going out in my community to try to steward, a lot of what this brand represents, sweat a little bit, and just encouraging people to go move their body. It's there's a lot of ways you can take care of yourself. We can talk about health, and we can talk about supplements and your diet. And to me, the movement part is the easiest thing to grasp. Like you can go on a walk, and that's
yeah.
always going to be good for you.
Yeah, that's really all that is really fascinating. The whole story with Rosie, that was
Mhm,
really interesting because I saw that and I found that really interesting because, I've gotten into running a little bit. And so I think my longest run's like only 4.5 miles, but still
mhm,
just trying to get into it.
mhm,
And I saw that and what is she, like 96, 97 races in now out of the 100, and it's like incredible what she's doing.
Mm.
In terms of your company, like Sweat a little bit, I want to understand like what is it and what do you guys do and kind of what's the story behind that and how it got started.
Okay. Yeah, Jordan Rodricks is my best bud, and he's a physical therapist out here in Charlotte now. He's from the Outer Banks, like me. But it started. There's a common theme, unfortunately, with mental health, and we've lost. So I'll just get into that story specifically. He was in PT school, Winston-Salem State, and I had just got on the football team at North Carolina A&T. I was in Greensboro, North Carolina. Didn't have a place to stay. I crashed on his couch, and that was like when our friendship like really grew even stronger. But he had lost his brother right around that time to an overdose. His older brother Mitchell,
Mm,
and was just obviously just a incredibly hard thing to deal with. And it was almost kind of like way God worked in that moment to where it's, because we had always been friends, but in that, like, we had really grew as friends during
yeah.
through that and ever since. So it was almost like he lost a brother and then gained a brother all at the same time. And that's
Mm,
kind of where how he tells the story too. Um, but I think he was literally listening to like a early 2000s rap song. I don't even know what it was. He was like on a race or on a run, and it's like drink a little bit. It's like some song, and he was just like said it in his head, sweat a little bit. And he's like, okay, swell, that's a little catchy. And that's kind of like
yeah.
where the brand started and on a run. And then we got some stickers and he's on Instagram shouting it out, hashtag sweat a little bit, and kind of just have organically just grown this little community that's, inspires people to get after it. And
Wow.
um, the empty the tank, here on the logo,
Yeah.
that's less about in the sense of like two bros at the gym, just like get like
Yeah.
just like crushing the workout. It's less of it in that sense, the physical, when it's more about what I described earlier, to like empty the tank, like
Mentally.
get it out of
Yeah.
your head. Like
Mm,
using a workout. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of like all of the neurochemistry of like all the endorphins and
yeah.
neurotransmitters and everything as a chemical reaction to moving your body. It's fascinating our how our bodies are just literally designed to be resilient, and the whole idea of hormesis and that acute level of exposure to stress, whether sauna, cold plunge, a workout, and then we adapt to it and get stronger. It's just awesome that we're hardwired to be hard bodied and resilient in that way. And I think that's people. A lot of people, don't realize that, and we are all so much more capable than we could ever
Oh,
imagine. So yeah, that's kind of the message of sweat a little bit. And like I said, we're in this chapter of life because he finished up PT school and he's working as a physical therapist in Charlotte and has a job. And I have 6 hours away, I have my job. And we're at this
yeah.
moment where we're like really trying to take some action on some things. But in a way, like I said, he lost his brother. I lost several friends of mine to drug overdose and
Mm,
suicide,
yeah.
unfortunately, in the Marine Corps, out of the Marine Corps. And it's almost like we're ready to go on the offense. And, we aspire to create a community that people want to be a part of. And
Yeah.
that's a real, relatable. I feel like sometimes in health and wellness to some people that are like just getting started, it can seem like not attainable.
Yeah, dude,
So
all the time.
yeah,
It's all the time. Yeah.
and the biohacking stuff and all that's cool, and I love to nerd out about it, and, but we're trying to, like, get just simple. Let's get out there, let's pick a couple kettlebells around, throw some things around, break a sweat, have a good time, fellowship,
Mm,
and then wanna eventually grow into, more of a brand and a presence and hosting our own retreats and getting into events, and yeah, that's kinda the direction
dude,
that we're going.
that would be awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. That everything that you described, it just sounds like a really good thing. It sounds actually very similar to another guy that I just met, or well, I've one of my dad's friends, but he's also building this community of guys, and it's very much like a community, but they're trying to build things, and they're like he does coaching with them. There's like 80 guys or something like that, and he coaches these 80 guys, but it's more of a community feeling, and it sounds very similar, and it that sounds awesome. It sounds like you guys are really doing, or you're trying to do bigger things and really take on some stuff. What through all this, so um you have the wedding company or the company that you're involved with.
Mhm.
You have this company, Sweat a Little Bit. I from what I know, I those are the only two companies. Um, but are there what like through all this, what is the legacy that you're trying to leave? Like if there was one thing or two things that you just like, this is ultimately what I want to leave. Um, and this is what I want to leave to all the younger generations. What are you trying to build? And, like, what does that look like?
Hmm. Yeah. So I think deep down at my core, like I said, I really aspire to help people be the best versions of themselves.
Yeah.
And I think the enemy is just at work and people don't even realize what their full potential is. And we have these limiting beliefs of what we're capable of
Hmm. Yeah.
and the ability to cope and handle situations and to be resilient. Um, and just to inspire and that way, I'm very, watching you and Jonathan's podcast and
Hmm.
having to remind myself of how young you guys are
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
hearing like, honestly, man, kudos to
Yeah.
you for having this platform and having the conversations you're having. It says a
Thank you.
lot
Yeah.
about you, how you were raised, and your maturity. And
Mm.
then Jonathan as well, man. He's a man on a mission.
Yeah.
What is he? 19 years old,
Yeah.
and you're only
Yeah.
17.
Yeah.
Right? So that gives me, man, that fire, you don't understand. That fires me up. That gives me so
Mm.
much encouragement. Like I said, I'm the oldest of 7. So I've got a they're twins. They're your age. They're the last ones. They'll be seniors this year.
Wow. Yeah.
And a boy and a girl. And so to hear you guys like talking like that, like that's so encouraging, man. And as far as like leaving a legacy, I aspire to have a family and have kids one day and all
Yeah.
the things, but, um, I think, and again, I don't have all the answers. I don't have it all worked out. I'm just a human just like everyone else. I'm trying to do my best to get myself out of the way to receive those signals, man, and
Mm. Yeah.
doing learning to be a better communicator, learning to control my emotions and to just be even keel and, to have perspective and balancing that fine line of
Yeah.
grace and assertiveness and accountability. And, honestly, like the way as a company and as a business and as a legacy, I am particularly interested in like the whole idea of having the land and having the space, having the venue, having, and the dream is for that is to, maybe be multiple locations in a place that is just a wholesome experience at all levels that people come. They can come for rest.
Yeah.
They can come to be inspired. There can be music. There can be, workouts, and there's saunas and cold plunges. I'm really passionate about nature and having, an agricultural presence, like a working farm, and people that really know what they're doing in the regenerative world and sustainable living and cooking and getting back to the basics in a lot of ways, barefoot picking herbs out of the garden and catching a fish off the back dock, and that's your dinner. um I'm really fascinated, and it just ties back to the idea of stewardship, man. It's a constant theme throughout the Bible. Like in Genesis, like right away, it talks about tending your garden, right? And the word it uses is to subdue. It gives us dominion, over the earth, and to subdue is to put things in order. And and this is before Adam and Eve bit the apple, right? This is plan A,
Yeah.
was to work and going back to having purpose and people not, being disconnected from that. So
Yeah.
the idea of work, like we are supposed to be getting after it and pushing ourselves
Oh,
and
yeah.
pushing ourselves out there. And Yeah, man, it's just a constant theme throughout the Bible, and it's amazing. Like I said, I'm not married and I don't have kids yet, but God talks about that and how even just the lessons through that, like what is it to be married is to like here I am not married talking about what is it to be married, but in a lot
Yeah.
of ways it's your steward, right?
Yeah.
You are supposed to be selfless in that
Mm,
situation, and then having a kid. I don't have kids, but like I said, oldest of seven. I've seen what it takes to. I've changed diapers and babysit my whole
yeah.
life. So like what a selfless act that is, and God's like gives us that as an example.
Mm,
And what a amazing experience and a love that you can't really experience without that. So I think that's just a
yeah.
constant theme throughout the Bible.
Dude, yeah, dude, all of that is amazing. And, I really appreciate that. I appreciate that viewpoint where it's like, you know, you want to leave a legacy through your family, but also through the businesses. Just giving people a really good time. Uh, Remind me. Let's talk about. I want to connect you with someone. I think you talked about like regenerative space or whatever it's called.
Mhm.
I have someone in that space that I think would be really
Cool.
interesting for you to connect to. But yeah, that all that's amazing. What are a couple books, like one or two books that have really changed or just shifted your perspective in life or when it comes to business or just, well, yeah, just one or two of those that are like, you got to read this or, um, yeah, just like you have to read it.
Yeah, I think one of them I mentioned to you on the phone before was, Patrick Bet-David's Choose Your
Yeah.
Enemies Wisely. Um,
Yeah.
and that is a book where if you are, um essentially, it's a blueprint for kinda how to write a business plan, and the whole
Yeah.
premise is some people say in business, like, you don't need to be emotional, which is largely true because too much emotion or emotion in the wrong way, too much emotion, there's logic goes down, right? But the whole premise
Hmm.
is like you want people to have a pulse. You want it to inspire you. Like you don't
Yeah.
want to be fully emotionless. And so he has this kind of like this graphic where it's like on one side it's emotion and logic, and he has these building blocks.
Mm,
And choose your enemies wisely is neat. The premise is, a part of it is kind of like that whole Michael Jordan thing where he used to just make up stories about his opponents because that's like what made him tick, right? And that's what would fire him up to get the best out of him was like, oh, what did they say about me? So there's like a little bit
yeah.
of that, but also it's like your enemy can be like, someone like your enemy could be big ag if you're passionate about regenerative farming and your friend who's creating his protein bars, right? And he's like looking at
Yeah.
things and he doesn't the ingredients and like that's like an enemy of his is like the industry in that way who's maybe trying to hide behind branding and labeling to it's like
Yep.
but it's um that's a great book and it's a great one to kind of just like have you reflect and a good framework to creating writing out your business plan.
Mm, wow, that's really good. Yeah, I have so many books I need to read. It's
Mhm,
absolutely crazy. I think I have like, I counted it. I have almost 100 books that are just business, where it's like Patrick Bet David, Jocko Willink, Isidore Sharp. Like you just go down the list, and it's like Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett. You just like, there's so many books to read, and it's like, yeah,
mhm,
what do you want to read right now? What's your priorities? And so it's like, yeah, there's a lot of good books. Let's see, I'm reading a book right now, The Power of Habits, really good book. It's all about, keystone habits, like what's your mission, but also like cue, cravings, rewards. And so there's like kind of steps to how do you market things? How do you make things attractive and people want to buy it? Kind
mhm,
of like the science behind that, and something that I really appreciate. But when I listen to that, like I've heard a lot of really good things about Patrick Bet David, and something that I definitely want to I want to read his books and definitely look into that. What so you've started a couple businesses. What is been the hardest challenge for you when you've faced when building your business or just in the process of running that, that is like, this is definitely the hardest thing, and how did you overcome that?
Well, I think from this jump, it can be tricky working with friends and family if there's,
Yeah.
there's a balance to that. I've got brothers and sisters and my mother tied into this and some of my best buds, but I think I think the main thing is being intentional about your aim
Hmm. Yeah.
and strategizing to what are we truly trying to get out of this? Like what are our next 5 moves? Like what's our objective here? And getting everyone on the same page, and then also, that balance of just kind of having patience, and then also
Mm.
like,
Yeah.
there's, you know, uh one of the words for the year I heard someone say was, he was like, "My word is speed. I want to replace the word, tomorrow with right now. Like let's
Mm.
get to it."
Yeah.
But I would say, even for me too, like um there's a plan for me to, to potentially acquire the business one day down the line, and I have amazing founders who have laid the groundwork, and just like any natural progression in a company, we are, I they've gotten it to a certain point and they're at this chapter in their life where, maybe they're looking to slow down and transition to a different part, and then, I'm starting to kind of see the direction I want to go, and then I think the 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 anxiety that can maybe come with, and I said something earlier where we like put limiting beliefs onto what we think we're capable of. And I think this is one of the biggest things where being in these masterminds and having the great consulting that I've been having recently through Bet David Consulting and talking to other people is a whole nother level of extreme ownership. I've always been someone who's, you know, disciplined and like to say I held myself accountable in that way and didn't make excuses, but I found myself kind of just like maybe just being frustrated about my circumstances in a way to where I talked about it too much, um and it created some frustrations, and I think it really stemmed from I was avoiding that uncomfortable conversation, having that crucial conversation, and just being open about, what I wanted to do, and then voice my opinions. And I think it was I hadn't done the deep work to first off define, okay, what do I want? Like if the keys were in my hand tomorrow, like what would I do? So
Mm.
if there's an anxiety knowing to like, oh, I haven't really done the deep work to even like, really think about that or map that out. And then there's
Yeah.
another part of it where it's like having that crucial conversation is a skill. Like being an effective communicator is a skill, right?
Yes. Yeah, it is.
Some people are born more natural, and with abilities, but guess what? You can get better at it. You can read books like,
Mm.
Never Split the Difference is a good one. You can read books like 33 Strategies of War and just kind of understand human psychology, and give you some perspective, and just certain language and the way you
Yeah.
phrase things. So I
Yeah.
think I finally did that work to kind of be like, you know
Yeah.
what? Like, why am I having this victim mentality right now? And it's because I put a cap on truly on like, oh, I subconsciously, right?
Yeah.
I feel like didn't feel like I was capable of having that crucial conversation and like making these bigger decisions and power moves and processing these issues. Um, so yeah,
Dude.
I can't even remember the
Yeah.
original question, but for me,
Yeah.
that's like kind of where I'm at in this next chapter, and it's like just having that balance of like humility, like confidence, and but also like humility, like really reflect and like what are your blind spots, like what do I need to get better at, like that's why it's so important to kind of like, you know, do a SWOT analysis and like look back and reflect and what went right, what went wrong, and this is my
Mm.
weakness, but okay, if this is my weakness, maybe I can read 5 books on that topic and turn it into
Yeah.
potentially a strength, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Dude, that's incredible. I wanna touch on 1 or 2 things you said. You said, "If the keys were in my hands, what would I do tomorrow?"
Mhm.
And I really like that because, like, I'm literally I tried writing it down because it's like I love that because it is a really good point. If the keys were in my hands tomorrow, like, would I still be doing like, what would I be doing? What would I be doing different? But I also really like that observation of, like, what is the thing that is holding me back? Is it myself? What are my weaknesses? And I think there's something in that where it's like, how do you, um, I'm trying to figure out how to best word this, but like, how do you figure that out in like what you're doing? How do you kind of how do you have a litmus test every time, making sure that you're actually the one, that is like the problem is with you versus with other people? How do you kind of work through that? Like, how do you determine like if you were working with someone, how do you know it's you versus them?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I think it always to always at least attempt to see yourself as a common denominator in any situation, start with that.
Yeah.
Always ask,
Mm,
what could I have done better? Because listen, we've all fall short, right, of the glory of God, and we're all, we're all gonna
mm,
mess up. None of
yeah.
us are perfect. So, sir, first off, like, okay, what did I say something wrong that might maybe like I was too emotional and I shouldn't have said that and I got them all upset and that led to this
Mm,
and now
yeah.
um and as far as like, yeah, because I know people in certain situations where they do play that victim mentality, and it's like, okay, well, it's like, if you feel like you're being taken advantage of, right? And then that's a recurring pattern where you feel like you
Mm,
keep being taken
yeah.
advantage of. Are
Yeah.
you why are you being taken advantage of? Are you naive to this and that? Did you not properly communicate, Um,
Mm,
so
yeah.
and then I think it's just a discernment, brother, and that's where it's like,
Yeah.
just pray for wisdom and pray for God for clarity and to have discernment and to be just try to be transparent, as honest as possible because, yeah, there's gonna be situations where, someone else is messed up and
Mhm.
it's different, very different if, maybe they're your superior or if it's someone underneath you, right? And
Mm.
and
Oh,
and
yeah,
that
that's a good point.
and that's where some, everyone coming up, whether like I think of a lot in the military, like a rank structure, and there's
Yeah.
clear set boundaries and but because the way you communicate that's different, whether it's someone who's a superior or someone who's under your leadership, and it starts, and then it's from there. It's just good communication. But if if you find yourself continually being in a situation where you feel like you're ready to test your convictions, and you know what, it is, it this other person was wrong in this situation. um just
Yeah.
praying about it and trying to make decisive decisions with all of the context available and with
Yeah.
discernment. I'm sorry I don't have like a clear cut answer on that,
Oh, yeah, no worries.
but that's a really good question. I mean, that's something I'm still trying to figure out, brother.
Yeah, that's something that, like, I think is just really good. It's always I think it always starts with you is, like, the
Hmm.
main thing. It's like, having that ownership where it's saying, like, "No, like, this is my I take ownership over this. This is what I could have done better. This is what you could have done better. But let's work together to make this better next time." I think there's something to that, though, where it's like, always starting with yourself and always working from there and then going into other areas. I
Yeah.
really like that idea and just thought. You've talked a lot about like signal versus noise. How do you separate that? And I know we talked about this, like phones, distractions, all that. But what's your process for staying like truly focused on just the things that really matter to you?
So in like a literal sense, like working, right? Um, Cal Newport has a book called Deep Work,
Yeah.
which he talks about. There's all these great artists throughout history, whether like
Yeah.
painters or even like musicians and bands who have went and recorded an album. There's stories of where people go and they out and they go to a cabin in the woods, or they're like
Yeah.
on the house on the lake and there's like nothing around them, right? So I think it really in it's kind of it's a deep read. I need to do the deep work and go back and revisit that one. But the
Mhm.
concept
Yeah.
is just like we like our attention spans, right? Even like having like a different tab open on your computer and getting that email notification is enough for you to get like to like truly be intentional and focus and deep work on this one thing, you know.
Yeah.
So like in that in the literal sense of work productivity, do not disturb. I really enjoy Brain FM. Are you familiar with that?
No.
I heard Ben Greenfield talk about it on a podcast years ago,
Okay,
and
yeah.
it's I was kind of into binaural beats and different things, and
Okay,
listening.
yeah.
And I'm not even exactly sure how to explain the science behind it, but Brain FM kind of taps into some of those things and different specific sound waves that
Yeah.
help you. And there's different settings. You can have a creative, you can have a deep. There's ones for
Interesting.
sleep, and I
Yeah.
subscribe to that for the year, and that's I throw that on, and it really helps me lock in.
Really? Wow. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm,
I just go to Spotify and I know that people have talked about like hertz before, like
mhm,
certain frequencies. And so if you just look up like sleep hertz or something like that, there'll be like frequency music. So like creativity or focus or sleep or deep restorative music or so it's like 420 hertz or 500 hertz. And so I guess like the hertz correlate to a certain thing that can really help you. So I've done that before, but I have not done Brain FM. That sounds pretty similar, but
mhm,
also probably a little bit more professional or like an app or something that you can just easily
mhm.
use. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Yeah, and then, this is where and I'm excited to learn more about this kind of stuff, like, people who are these high performers and, like, again, I've got a lot of, inspiration from guys like Ben,
Yeah.
your workflow throughout the day, modifying your environment, like,
Yeah.
I've got the little trampoline, little rebound,
Yep.
thing in my room, and, there's a lot of amazing studies, uh, Huberman did a podcast with Pavel Tachilini. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Russian,
Yeah.
just really, really well known strength conditioning guy. But there's a lot of studies that show like, hey, you go and like get under a barbell and rip a few squats, or go like move your body for like even just a short duration, and then you go back to work, like you're
Yeah.
already better. Little hacks like a cold plunge in that same manner, or like a sauna. Like so, I'm really fascinating, and I'm not perfect by any means of like really trying to dial in and get your environment set up in a way to where like you can kind of like you know have these
Yeah.
resets throughout your day, if that makes sense. And I've heard people like Alex Ramosi talking about what does he call them? There's manager days, and then there's I can't remember the other term, but
Yeah.
he basically is like there's days where he's like uninterrupted deep work. He's like looking into a new project, and then there's other days where he has his meetings and he's collaborative and he's doing
Mm,
all the things. So he tries to like intentionally build his schedule in a way to that it is in that rhythm, and then also everyone who he works with is aware of that rhythm, and like sets a standard and a boundaries and expectation for communication when when they could expect to be able to reach out to him and get a response back, and setting up your work week in such a manner. I think that's a good
yeah.
strategy as well.
That's really interesting. I haven't heard him talk about that. I've
Mhm.
been listening to him and Chris Williamson on the Modern Wisdom podcast. I've been basically just going through their whole series. So, first like 3 episodes, I'm like halfway through the third episode. I've listened to, I think they're like one's like 2 hours, one's 3 hours, and then this one I'm listening to is 3 hours, and it's just like it's so good because they're like talking about all these different things. So it's like moving from your different friend group. It's like you grow out of these old friends and you need to move up. And so Chris has this term that he coined, the lonely chapter. And so this lonely chapter is that you want to get better and you're with this group of friends, but then you kind of move up, but you haven't hit that new group yet. So
Mhm.
you're in this lonely chapter where your old friends are, the friends that you've kind of left, but now you're moving into this kind of chapter where you're by yourself, you have to figure things out, but then you're going to find that new group. And so it could take, a year to 5 years, and it's like it's just this chapter of not loneliness, but it is the lonely chapter. And I thought that was really interesting. So I've been listening to them talk about all this stuff. And Alex Hermosi is very smart when it comes to business. And
Yeah, he's a
um,
beast.
yeah, yeah, he's incredible. Um, if you could get everyone to adopt just one habit to better their lives, what would it be, and why would you choose that?
Hmm. I know the whole morning routine thing has been, like, oversaturated,
Yeah,
and, but it's I think that there's so much value with that, and for me, um, getting in the Word first thing in the morning, um,
yeah,
that's stacked with some movement and all this stuff, but, and even more particularly, I think journaling, I did
mm,
like a 30-day journal, um, uh Bless God Studios, they have a really cool one. I can't remember the Bless God. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a really good devotional book. A pen
yeah,
to paper and just, getting in the word and then reading like a little commentary on it and then answering a few questions and just like starting with that is just a great way to just like set your intention for the day.
yeah.
And do you know who Forrest Frank is?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Forrest
Yeah,
Frank's awesome.
have you seen his whole story where how he broke his back and stuff?
Yeah. Dude, that's crazy.
His testimony behind that's really cool, and, like, he speaks on, like, doing a 30-day journal challenge, and there's
Mm,
a lot of great things to pull from his testimony with that, but I would say that, man. I would say getting in the Word first thing in the morning.
yeah, wow, that's really great. I know you've Yeah, journaling is really important, getting in the word. Journaling is something I wanna get more into. It sounds like you can look back throughout the
Mm.
years and, realize, "Oh, this is my personality," or, "This is what I was thinking at that time in this day." And so journaling is something I would wanna get into. Something you mentioned earlier is that your company is being advised by Patrick Bet-David's company, and at least or something like that. What like so what have you done with Patrick Bet David? What does that look like in terms of is he advising you? I know you talked about one time you did the Minette call with him or phone or the text or something like that.
Mhm.
What's your interactions with Patrick Bet David been like? And I know he's been a big influence. You've read his books. What's just a couple lessons you've took or taken from him that have like really applied to business that you just really like?
Yeah, so we signed up for his general mastermind, so it's like once a month there was like, um all these businesses and everyone else who signed up hops on this like giant Zoom call and you submit questions and he might
Mm,
answer your question and he might
yeah,
not. And you learn so much from the questions that everyone else is asking
yeah,
too. And you just kind of see them like process these issues in real time. And then like I said, Connect is a great platform where you can go directly to him and other people I've been consulting with to help me process issues. Um, and like I'm attending his big conference next month, which is going to be really cool. Um, but the biggest thing, there's two things that I think that I've really pulled from him. The first one was like he actually did answer our question, and it was kind of like, okay, with where we're at in our business and trying to, in this transition phase, and and maybe trying to move on. The founders are starting to like delegate and move on from some of their day to day stuff, and so what he says was systems, systems, systems.
mm,
And he recommended a book called Life After Steve, I think it's called. It's like Apple after Steve Jobs
okay,
had
yeah,
passed and kind of and that's another one that's kind of a little bit of a tougher, longer read, but there's some good stuff in there. But
yeah,
yeah, like really being, because from a business sense, he basically he said something else too in a mastermind where he said, "You don't deserve a raise," and I don't know if this is literally like the way his company operates, but like you don't really deserve a raise or a promotion until like you've like taught two other people how to do your job. And like you
Hmm.
think of this, the whole idea of like a business growing and scaling is it's like, okay, like you're this is your job. And like for me to even have the capacity to be able to go move on and to, you know, be innovative and to look into new things and to strategize, like I have to get the guys under me in a position where they can
Mm.
do what I'm doing so I
Yeah.
can. And I'm so blessed that the business that I'm in with the founders allowed me to have trusted me with that role and in the space that I'm in to be able to kind of figure that out on the fly. And the team that I have around that I can trust, and but a whole nother level of just like systems and as a, you know, does your business operate on talent like you, or is it operate on systems? Like, is there an onboarding process and a pamphlet I can give someone that explains our process to a T? And that's the hard part, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
you might be very capable to launch this product or whatever you're trying to do, but it's a whole nother thing when you're getting and people involved. And you know, so the idea of just systems and thinking systematically is one, and then the other one I kind of spoke on earlier is just the whole idea of just like another level um extreme ownership. He kind of called
Yeah.
me out on like we actually got called on, and there was a mastermind. He kind of called me out, and the word I'll never forget it. I wrote it down. The
Yeah.
um he was talking about how like you know you can either fight or flight kind of thing, and he was like he was like sounds like you're being flighty, and like you are avoiding the conversation, you are avoiding this and that, and like guys like me, like I can't even have a conversation, you know, like take you serious unless you've like done that. And I was like, oh man, like, and it was tough.
Yeah.
It was like a tough love situation. You know what I mean? He even said something like, "Hey, I understand if you guys never come back to one of these masterminds, like, but this is just how I operate. I'm just, you know, and
Wow.
you know, and
Yeah.
and me and my guys looked at each other and we're like, you know what, you know, we message received, sir, and that was a good one. That was like a little bit of a it shook me up a little bit.
Yeah.
But those are two things, like systems and just like a whole nother level of just extreme ownership, seeing yourself as the common denominator in everything that's going on.
Yeah. Wow. So, man, that's incredible. Systems and then extreme ownership. I love the extreme ownership, and then systems is definitely something you need to have when you're in business. Because if you don't have systems, you don't have a way of operation.
Mhm.
And so yeah, that's really good. What is so you have sweat a little bit. What's your goal with that? What are you trying to build that to? And then with your other company with the wedding venue and
Mhm.
all that, what's kind of your goals with both of them? What do you want to scale them to? What's kind of the long term vision for each of those?
Yeah, brother. So that's in the weeds of it. That's where I'm at right now. That's part of why I'm in Charlotte right now with my
Mm,
buddies, conversating and talking about these things. And because you know, part of it is, can the weddings and the wellness and everything coexist, or am I being naive and I'm just going to have a watered down version of what I really want to do, and it's always
mm,
going to be this side hustle that never really turns into you know what I would inspire to turn into. So, and then there's also this concept of like a flywheel in business where you have
yeah,
multiple things that are feeding into each other, right? But they have to make sense. You know, you've got Apple Music, they have their
yeah,
own headphones.
yeah.
They've got
Podcasts. Yeah,
like you can kind of see like at a big level how a company like that has all these things that the phone, and they feed into each other. Like one thing supports the other. Um, so you know, it so that's where I'm at right now, brother, trying to figure this out and having these good conversations with the founders who I have a great open relationship with, and want to get make sure we're on the same page because they deserve my best. And if you know, if I feel like it's if it's the black swan, if it's like it makes sense that we did part our own ways and we gave each other a big hug and we say thank you for all the time, like
yeah,
I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's doors that God has opened that tell me that it's going to work out with this team. So, you know, but is the weddings a stepping stone, and eventually I'm going to transition into more of my passion things. But the what I would love to do is to figure out the flywheel model. And there's places like Sweet Honey Farm in New Jersey,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's other venues out there where they have the farm, they have the gym, and they're doing retreats and they're having keynote speakers and doing the events. And they're also, it's a pretty place to have a wedding, right?
Yeah.
So, and there's a business model out there that's out there, and it works. And then tying in sweat a little bit to that flywheel. And this weekend is really, my buddy Jordan is, they might be podcasting upstairs as we speak, as a part of, I wanted us to connect this weekend is to get him out there. And he's just such an amazing, smart guy
Mm.
who has so much to give. And putting a spotlight on him is going to be cool. And just grow and sweat a little bit, one thing at a time. We're hosting. I'm also really passionate about music, and I
Yeah.
kind of came to the conclusion where it's like I have a little bit of this scatterbrain ADD to me, where it's like it can be like a weapon, like a powerful tool to harness, and then sometimes it can like slow down progress. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure that out, and still trying to figure it out. But the venue part was like the thing that kind of hit me one day. It's like, oh, that's the one thing to where it's like that all of the things can exist is like the land, that part of it, where
Mm.
all of the things that I am passionate about. So I feel like
Yeah.
that's the direction God's calling me, is to have these just like amazing locations where I can create these experience and host a bluegrass festival, which we're hosting one in November, called Grass
Yeah.
Fed. My girlfriend's a beast. She's like doing the whole thing. And
Yeah.
then how Sweat a Little Bit's gonna tie into there and be a part of the branding and the messaging. I've yet to really figure out how that all connects yet, just to be fully honest with you at this moment. And then
Yeah.
also Jalen, who I podcast with, he's got a brand called Cope, and
Mm.
very a similar thing where he's just like has a mission to want to help people, and
Yeah.
and help people deal with the inevitable curveballs life's going to throw at you, and be able to be resilient. And he's like the media guy, he's the podcast guy, he's the content creator, and is really talented and possesses all these skills in different areas that me and Jordan were lacking. So I'm excited
Mm.
to see what this connection is gonna turn into.
Yeah, that's really cool. For just like as a just as like a side note, what is like if you could just describe your vision with what you're building right now in Outer Banks and just kind of like the vision behind that for people that don't know what it is, what like what does that look like? What are you trying to make it into? What is it right now? And then how are you gonna, I know you're talking about how to um, tie in Sweat a little bit, but how would that come around to as a company? Um, just kind of like what's the backstory there, and um, how did you get involved with that, and what does that look like now?
Yeah, so it started off as like a college summer hustle, doing working for this company, and then my relationship grew with the founders. After COVID, the whole team left, and wasn't
Wow.
due to really any reasons. Like it was just a couple of guys in their mid-20s. COVID was weird, and we're like, what do we do with our lives? And went to see greener pastures, and then the owners came back at me with another offer to bring me back. And then I kind of got the band back together, and it's just kind of grown from there. And then, so we do full setup. So we'll go to the beach and put out chairs and the arbor on the beach and flowers and rake the sand and hang
Mm,
lights for the reception and bring over the farm tables and do all the things. And then we acquired our first venue a couple of years back, the Diamond on the
wow.
Sound. And it's a beautiful 4-bedroom home on about 6 acres on the water. And we've hosted a couple weddings there. We've done a handful of retreats now. Hosted like a little pilot wellness event with the DJ and a yoga class, and like a little market that went really well. And there's like a growing community on the Outer Banks of like-minded people that are interested in health, and young professionals who are like encouraging each other and motivated. And there's like, I feel like there's a demand and a need for that, and on the
Mm,
Outer Banks. And so one, like in the short term, like we're turning our garage into a gym. We're gonna get a sauna and a cold plunge there soon, and slowly
dude.
start kind of like incorporating some of these
Yeah.
like amenities one by one. And I want to invite, people who are like-minded and excited and wanna come, and we'll hang out, and we'll have build these experiences together, and we'll take it. And then also just like the Outer Banks, like born and raised, so like all the things that come with that. You wanna go surfing, I'll take you to my cousin Brienne at Outer Surf, or
Yeah.
get you a board, get you a surf lesson. You wanna go fishing, we'll go see my brother-in-law down in Fish Hatteras, and
Oh, man, that's
we'll
awesome.
yeah, we'll tear up, we'll catch a trout and some drum, and duck hunting in the wintertime. And so that, I don't know if you ever saw the Outer Banks TV show, but the Outer
I haven't
Banks,
yet.
yeah, it's a little cheesy. It's not, it's like, like anything, it's like,
Yeah,
it's Hollywood eyes a little bit. But so yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of the goal of where I'm at with the company is. And then the where I see Sweat a little bit coming in. What's the fella? His name is Devin. He owns the company Pro Mix. He's actually one who owns Sweet Honey Farm, and
Oh,
they're just
yeah.
doing really
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
They're doing really
Yeah,
cool things. Like there's an event called the Running Man that I mentioned earlier, and
yeah,
it would be really cool. I was actually out here today. There's the Whitewater Olympic Training Centers in Charlotte, and
yeah.
it's like, but it's cool. It's like basically like an outdoor amusement park. Like people go in there. There's hiking
Wow.
trails. There's like rock climbing. There's zip lines, and they have 1,300 acres, and there's like a stage, and there's
Oh
music,
my goodness, that's
and
huge.
it really got our wheels churning. So I think like we're gonna like there's like a trail run, like relay race that Jordan's ran before, that we're like, hey, what's have they what's the date for that next year? Let's go
Mm,
introduce ourselves and make our presence known, and set up a
yeah,
tent, and like have a team, and then kind of just starting to create some of those our events our own on a smaller scale at our property, and just take it one step at a time.
dude, that's incredible. I know this is more of a just my curiosity kicking in, but are so let's say you do this really well. Outer
Mhm.
Banks knocks it out of the park. Are there any plans for expansion? Are you looking at other places like, hey, let's put one in Charlotte, let's put one here. Let's like are there any plans for expansion? I just like talking about this stuff because it's
Yeah.
fun, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what your vision
So
is.
one thing that me, Jordan, and Jalen have kind of been stewing on, like you see a lot of like, there's a big health scene out in California, and obviously like Austin, Texas and stuff. And
Yeah.
like we're almost like, let's put on for North Carolina. Like, so
Mm,
I'm all the way East Coast on the beach. That's where Jordan's from. He's in Charlotte now. And then Jalen's out in Asheville, North Carolina in the mountains. Um,
mm,
and
yeah.
he was actually out there during the hurricane, and has like a
Oh,
crazy like
wow.
story behind that. They made a documentary on it. It's a really good documentary. They captured all the, it was just crazy, the destruction from that. But anyways, like we kind of have a, yeah, we would love to expand, and
Mm, yeah.
obviously tapping into a market like Charlotte. There's a lot of people out here. There's the Panthers, and then the mountains is a whole other thing. So the goal is to kind of start with the property, the Diamond on the Sound, and kind of create these, going back to systems, right? Kind of make this like template to where, if we did
Yep.
find a piece of property and out this way or in the mountains,
Yeah.
and kind of recreate that experience. And so yes, there is a dream to expand this. And we're kind of like this weekend, like almost like sitting at the round table, kind of like really being like, all right, guys, like we're going to do this thing, or is this going to be this floating idea? So like kind of really being intentional and taking action. And then even right now, me talking about it on a podcast, like, I'm either going to do it or I'm not. Right. So I'm going to watch this back one day and kind of be like, oh man, I was full of
Yeah.
crap. Or like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I was like, look,
Yeah.
I went for it.
Yeah,
So,
we have some friends, like I mentioned earlier, in Banff, Canada, and
mhm.
so we just visited them. It's pretty easy drive. I want to say 7 or 8 hours. But something I realized is, excuse me, they're doing the exact same thing, somewhat. They basically took this hotel in Banff, really touristy, and they took this old like rundown place. They took, the pool, everything, redid all of it, pretty nice, considered a luxury hotel now, but they have the first saltwater pool, um,
Whoa.
they have a cold plunge that's, like, built in, they have a sauna, they have a steam sauna, and then they have, like, 2 spas. Just
Wow.
gorgeous, it's called the Kenrick,
In
I'll
Canada,
have
you
to
said?
Yeah, in Canada, it is absolutely gorgeous. I'll have to send you it because I guess it's the only saltwater pool in Alberta,
Wow.
from what I've heard, or in Canada, one of those 2 things, but it's incredible, and so,
Have
I'll
you
have to
been?
send it. Yeah, we just went. It's incredible. I'll have to send that to you because it's a great blueprint, and so
I
I
would love
think
to
that
go
whole
check it
thing.
out.
Yeah, dude, the whole thing with the template too, like, if you can nail a property down and then you just, like, all right, now let's go to this next property. It does like it's all like customized to location. Sorry, customized to location though. When you think about it though, so it's like, all right, we're in Outer Banks. It has this and this and this. The temperature's here. The weather's this.
Mm,
All that stuff. So it's all customized. But I think what's really fascinating is like being able to um, kind of look at different properties. I think the Kenrick is a great example. It's more like a hotel, but you could
mhm,
easily scale that down. But like I think what you guys are doing is incredible, and I think if you pull that off, there was many times when we talked with the owner of the Kenrick. That's our friend, and the friend, our friend owns the hotel there. And something he was telling us is that you know the vision to get this all lined was really hard, and it was really hard to do. But the fact that we accomplished it is something that we can be really proud of. And
mm,
so I think when I hear about like what you guys are doing, it's like if you actually push through and make it incredible, one of the best experiences, like you will, like the money will come, right?
yeah,
Yeah. And so I say that all as like an encouragement, as in like, if you guys do that, what you guys have right now will probably be transformed into something completely better. You can start growing locations, you can expand. And so well, it will be hard. It'll
mm,
take time. It's like there's gonna be things that you're gonna have to do, but I think that just having that template, trying to like visualize everything, working on all of it, it's inspiring to know that you're working on this. We have friends up in Canada that did an amazing job with their hotel. Like I think it's you can do it, and I like believe in you. So
thanks,
man,
man.
everything that you're working on sounds amazing. So, yeah,
Th I appreciate the encouragement. I appreciate it.
yeah. Well, Tyler, it was amazing talking with you. Where can people find you if they wanna just find more from you?
So, yeah, I am, you can look up Sweat a Little Bit on, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. My Jordan's running that account. I am Tyler underscore Sweat a Little Bit on Instagram. Um, you can look up, the Diamond on the Sound, Instagram, TikTok, and stuff, OBX Diamond on the Sound. I do OBX weddings and events for anyone out there trying to get married. And yeah, just stay tuned. We're gonna be continuing to try to grow this thing, and you should be seeing more and more from us. So
Dude, that's amazing. Well, thank you for this amazing interview, and I can't wait to just put this out there. So, thank you, Tyler.
awesome. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you.